Rules aren't meant to be broken. They're meant to be rewritten altogether. If you're ready to play by your own rules, if you are a rebel with a cause, I think you'll love it here. Bring a friend, sit back, and enjoy another episode. Or don't. Remember, you write the rules here. Testing. Hello, my love. You are now tuned in to another episode of Rima's Rules. Today's conversation is a very real one between you and yourself. And it is basically around this idea that your old self literally gets no say in who you are becoming. I feel like everybody has at least one period of their life that was like the biggest transition between their old self and who they became. For me, that huge moment was 2017. I was in an emotionally abusive relationship of around 4 years on and off. I had friends that I had just collected throughout my childhood who I loved very much, considered them like sisters, and they very much so were kind of enmeshed in the identity that I had at that time. But I felt misaligned even in those relationships with people that I loved very much. I felt like I wanted something different. I felt like I wanted people who were going to challenge the way that I thought, not just kind of sign on and even like aid and abet a lot of my really bad habits and behaviors. The mindsets, the habits were just not aligned with this future version of me that was always so vivid. I could always vividly envision her, but it was like, you know how when you're in a car and your GPS keeps telling you like, what are you doing? Like it keeps trying to reroute you because you're taking the wrong turns. You have this destination plugged in, yet every turn you're taking is not in alignment with the route that it's literally trying to generate for you. That's how I felt during that time, is like you're dating this person and you don't see him in your future. Like you know he's not your husband. So first of all, what are you doing? You're friends with these people who you did see in your future, but who aren't challenging you in the ways that you know you need to be challenged in order to become this person that you want to be. The career path that you're on, there's kind of like a dead end there. Like, what are you really doing, girl? The thing that really pushed me to make the change that I knew I needed to change was my dad passing away suddenly. And if you've ever had any type of interface with death, like life and death, it really puts a lot of things into perspective for you. I cut the BS and I cut the emotional stuff out of the picture, ironically, because it was the most emotional period of my life, and just was able to like zoom in and laser focus on who I wanted to become. I had this immense gratitude for life. That's why I say it's one of the best, worst things that has ever happened to me, because it helped me reassess what I want out of this life. In many ways, it served as this like figurative fork in the road where I could either continue on the same path that I was on, and it was very clear what direction I was headed in on that path, or make a change in the way that I thought and the people that I associated myself with and the things that I decided to believe would be true for myself, and therefore become an entirely different person in the process. You can probably guess which route I decided to choose, and I'm so grateful now looking back, because although I love and honor that past version of myself, I like this version of myself so much more. I learned so much more in that process of basically like metamorphosizing. If that's a word that I just made up, we're just going to roll with it. But basically, I went into this little cocoon and came out like this beautiful, graceful butterfly. And I'm going to help you do the same, but not without warning you that it is going to be very, very uncomfortable. Just like how I imagine these little caterpillars feel when they're in this cocoon. It's dark, it's confusing. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know when you're going to emerge. You don't know if you're going to emerge. During this time, I was evolving. I was kind of in this figurative cocoon that I mentioned earlier. And it was like I was seeing the light, like there were little cracks in the cocoon and I could see the light, and I felt like I'm doing the right thing. And I felt like there was something better for me on the other side of that. But there was still this intense fear that something was going to pull me back in and take me into that dark place. Something was going to prevent me from emerging as this beautiful butterfly, right? So I wrote this poem to remind myself to stay the course. And the poem was, and when old mindsets, old habits, and old people tempt you to revert back to old ways, remind yourself that you're different now. And that was just the affirmation that I needed. I didn't want to lean on the people in my life. I wanted to become someone different. I wanted different for myself. So I kind of had to build a lot of self-reliance and self-trust. Now that I'm going through that again, I know that I'm different and I'm embracing it and I'm loving it. And I don't have any fear whatsoever of reverting back to old ways, because I just know that even though I might not know exactly what is on the other end of this, I know I am going to emerge 10 times better. I have not just the foresight in imagining my future self, but even the hindsight of like looking back on what that phase was for me in 2017 and being like, oh yeah, last time you went through something like this, it got really good. It got really interesting in your life. So I want to give you that same feeling. If you're going through a weird transition, you have no idea what's happening, but everything around you is kind of changing willingly or unwillingly, and you know that you are becoming someone new. Maybe you've decided like you're fed up with your behaviors, you're fed up with your life. Actually, come to think of it, there are 6 months left in the year, and I know you're probably watching a lot of the like 6-month glow up plan videos, and I want you to keep in mind these 3 reminders, these 3 rules that I still live by to this day as I'm continuing to go through this process, that are going to help you just blossom into this amazing, more aligned, sexy, happy version of you that you want to become. I promise if you keep these 3 rules in mind and if you live by them, nothing will have any power over you. Not the people in your life, not the mindsets that used to bring you down, not your circumstances. Nothing will get a say in who you get to become, and it will be the most empowering feeling you have ever felt. So let's get right into it. Number 1 is to be unapologetically different. You never need to apologize for changing your mind. Like tomorrow when you go to the coffee shop and they ask you what milk you want and you say oat milk, and then you're like, oh, never mind. Actually, sorry. Can I actually get almond milk? Like, we're not doing that, okay? You changed your mind in that moment. You changed your mind. You could just be like, actually, can I do almond milk instead? Thank you so much. But on a serious note, I know that was like such a basic example. Obviously, I'm joking. But like on a serious note, I don't want you to ever apologize for deciding that you don't want to be the person that you said you were yesterday, ever. And one thing I do want to note here is that not all apologies come in the form of saying sorry. You can apologize with your body language. You can apologize by over-explaining yourself. You can apologize by feeling guilty. Like those energies are all apologetic energies. It's this need to explain yourself to people or to explain your rationale to people. Nobody owns you, as far as I know. Like even your parents, nobody is entitled to what you decide to become in your life. Like this is your life. It's going to be your name on the tombstone at the end of the day. It is you that is going to have to look back and answer to yourself about the decisions that you made. Nobody's going to sit there and, answer for you when you're asked about the decisions that you've made. When you look back on your deathbed, I hate to get morbid, but like I said, life and death really has a way of putting things into perspective. When you look back on your deathbed, it is going to be you that has to be okay with the way that you lived or did not live your life. So therefore, when you decide that you want to just pack up and go to a different country for a month because you want to experience that lifestyle, you don't have to apologize for wanting something different. If you decide to change your college major, your whole personality was being pre-med, and then now you want to look into journalism, you don't have to apologize for changing your mind. I don't care if you were on scholarship for pre-med and you just decided that this actually doesn't make me happy. I'm not saying that you don't have a lot to lose. I'm not saying you won't be sacrificing things. I'm also not saying it's not going to be uncomfortable when you do change your mind and people have their own opinions about it. All I'm saying is that you don't have to apologize for that. That is your decision, your responsibility, but at the same time, your life. My philosophy here, my love, is that life is just so beautiful. Really, like life is so beautiful. Life is meant to be lived and maximized. And my opinion of what it looks like to maximize my life is to evolve into several different people in one lifetime. That's me. And I will never allow anybody, not even my future kids, to tell me that I'm not allowed to do that. This does not mean that you need to be individualistic. I know I'm going to get people in the comments like, this is living an individualistic. That's not what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying. This doesn't mean you don't show up for people. This doesn't mean to become individualistic. This doesn't mean to only think about yourself and not care about other people. No. This means to stop being a people pleaser when it comes to who you decide to be, like literally your identity, the person that you see when you look in the mirror. That should not be formulated based on other people's opinions. That should be formulated strictly from what you desire, who you decide you want to be. It also doesn't mean become someone different and then ghost people in your life. Like, communicate as much as you can, to the extent to which you can communicate your change. Communicate. But just don't wait for their approval to determine whether or not the change is going to happen. That's all I'm saying. So change often, and be unapologetic about your desire to change and evolve. Rule number 2 is that you can indeed teach an old dog new tricks. I don't know why we started saying that and just adopting it like we need to believe it. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Literally, who says? Who says? Maybe because we say that so often. When we have an old dog, we don't try to teach it new things because we assume that it's not going to be able to learn. Have you ever thought about that? Have you looked at all of the new research on the human brain and how much people can learn and retain even in their old age? Like, a lot of this stuff is just someone's assumption that we decided to believe and create into our reality. And when it comes to you, we're not going to just decide to believe in things because someone told us that we should believe in them. You can learn new things at any phase of your life. Yesterday's habits do not need to become tomorrow's plans. I want you to remember that. Just because you chose to do things a certain way yesterday, just because it was difficult for you to wake up at a certain time yesterday, doesn't mean you need to put that in your head as a truth or a belief about your future self. Stop doing this thing where you want to be safe and predictable, so you lean on who you were yesterday or last month or last year to help you understand who you are becoming. There's actually a lot of neuroscience to describe this whole predictability phenomena that I'm talking about. And it's because certain things that we do, like which shoe you decide to put on first, the pattern that you brush your teeth with, or like the hand that you use to hold your toothbrush, things like that, they are kind of like these automatic programs that run in our heads, and we don't have to think about them. If you've driven to the same place over and over and over, you probably find that you're kind of like in this trance state when you're driving, and sometimes you just get to where you needed to go without even realizing how you got there because your brain was kind of unconscious during that time. Like, you didn't have to really put conscious thought into it unless something happened that interrupted your normal flow. Maybe there was like really intense stop and go traffic, and so you couldn't actually get into that flow state. Maybe you had to take a detour because one of the roads was closed. That would kind of break you out of this unconscious state and make you be a little bit more conscious about what you are doing. My point here is that when you do something over and over and over, like wake up, grab your phone. This may or may not be me. Every morning, it's like I wake up, I lean over, I grab my phone, I click on a specific social media app, I look at it's like kind of all happening, and I'm kind of not really conscious of it while I'm doing it. And that is because there's this neurological pathway in my brain, kind of like a code in a computer program. But that neurological pathway is so etched into my brain. Like, I have really paved it so deep that it feels so much more comfortable for me to just go down that route versus pave a new path on completely fresh ground. So you guys know I love metaphors. And just thinking about plowing an open field, if you take your plow through the same route over and over and over, it's going to be so much easier for that plow to drive, on those tracks that are already pre-laid out for it. Whereas if you kind of turn that plow onto clear pastures, there's no already paved path, it's going to be a little harder, and it's probably not going to move as quickly because it has to pave that path. Anytime you decide to do something contrary to the program, like decide to brush your teeth with a different hand, decide to put your shoes on, in a different order, or tie your shoes in a different way than you normally do, you will start to notice how your brain switches from this unconscious state to being a little bit more conscious of what you're doing. And anytime you do something like that, you are literally breaking the habit of being yourself. That is literally the title of the most life-changing book that I have ever read in my whole freaking entire life. Like, genuinely, if there was one book that changed my life, it was that book by Joe Dispenza, and I'm going to link it because I really, really, really want you to look into it. It's not very much so like a beach read, I will say. It's not going to be like your summer beach read at all, but it is something that like when you read it with the highlighter and annotate it, it's just going to completely change the way you think about everything. And we won't be able to get into all of it in this video. But the main point that book, one of the main points that book left me with is this idea that you should actually embrace the discomfort, because like that plow analogy, it's going to literally feel more uncomfortable for you to do something new. And as a matter of fact, that discomfort is actually a sign that you are becoming a different version of yourself. Whereas if you're constantly following your comfort and following the feeling of predictability, you will never become different than who you are today. You will literally recreate the same person that you are. So if you are fed up with your habits, your mindsets, the relationships you're attracting, the opportunities you're attracting, you have to make a conscious effort to do something different every day. And that feeling, for me at least, that achy feeling of uncertainty, of not knowing what's going to come, you should embrace that, because actually, if you are able to predict what's coming, that is literally a sign that you're not doing anything different. That is literally a sign that you're not going to produce any different results. So that feeling of uncertainty, that fear, where your faith starts to kick in because you need it. That's all you have to lean on is your faith, because you can't lean on any other certainty that exists outside of just putting your faith somewhere else. That achy feeling, that fear, is actually something you should embrace. Lately, I've really been likening it to, and I would never do this in real life, but what I imagine it would feel like to just jump out of an airplane and just wait for your parachute to open. That terrifying few seconds, or however long people, have to wait. Even the thought of this freaks me out. That few seconds of time where you're just trusting that your parachute is going to open is probably mortifying. So what else do you have to lean on other than the faith that things are going to work out? The parachute is going to open above me. I'm not about to just faceplant, onto earth, but my parachute will open, and this will be a beautiful, smooth descent down, and I'll have this amazing view, and I'm just going to feel supported and held, and everything is going to work out the way it needs to. And again, while I will probably, I don't want to say I'll never do it, because part of this whole thing of like the old you has no say in who you're becoming, I've stopped saying what I will never do in the future. As of right now, I don't think I would ever have the desire to, jump out of an airplane as of right now. But who knows what future me has in store. Anyway, my point is that even though I don't think I will ever do that, the metaphor is how I've been feeling. Like I have been feeling like, okay, sometimes you just got to take a step out on faith and trust that the parachute is going to open. And I promise you, never once in my 31 years and a half of living has the parachute not opened for me. And in fact, not only has the parachute always opened, but the view, the view as I descended was always so much better than what I imagined it would be. And if you're feeling uncertain or feeling scared, I just want you to marinate on that feeling of things working out even better than you expect them to. Last but not least is rule number 3. You can disrupt the program whenever you want. So we just talked about how these programs, they kind of automatically run in your head, right? And I think when I wrote that poem that I talked about at the beginning of this video, I feel like I thought I had so much less power over those programs than I actually do. And so I had to write this poem to kind of remind me, you're different now. You're different now. Don't let these things come and pull you back. And I think that that's really what I was speaking to, is this automatic program in my head, this toxic cycle that I always found myself in back with my toxic ex, these friends that feel familiar, but ultimately don't feel like this is what's best for me. Like it all felt so tempting, just like the automatic programs in your head feel so tempting. The specific route that you drive to work feels so tempting. Ordering food delivery when you sit on the couch, because that's your brain has triggered to associate the TV and this couch with delivering food. This is real life example for me that I've recently disrupted. Like that program has been very disrupted because the goals that I had were not aligned with me eating Uber Eats 4 times a week. Let's just put it that way. But we will talk more about that on a different video. So my point here is that you actually will start to realize that you are the only person that could run the program or disrupt the program. There is nobody else like in control of the thoughts that you're having in your head. And when you start to become so hyper aware of your thoughts, You are the only person that will have the power to turn an unconscious thought into one that you are now looking at. There's this word that I learned in English class back in the day that's metacognition. And that is the art of like thinking about your thinking. When you start to become very metacognitive, when you are kind of this like third party observer, observing the thoughts that are going through, and think of yourself kind of like an auditor where you're like, letting these thoughts go on this conveyor belt. And the ones that you think are not helpful, you're pulling them out. Nope. This one is not good. This is contaminated. Let's throw it out. Whereas the ones that are serving you, you're allowing them to continue. The ones that you're not sure about, you're kind of grabbing them, you're examining them. Do I actually like this? Do I think that this is aligned with the life that I want? How can I adjust it and put it back on this conveyor belt so that I can ensure that the thoughts that are passing through are ones that are aligned with me? That might feel very overwhelming, even just hearing that metaphor, because we have like, I don't remember, like 30,000 thoughts a day or something crazy and sickening like that. You're not going to literally be aware 24/7, especially like when you're actually in your subconscious sleeping. But there's little fun ways, like the things that I mentioned in rule number 2, to turn yourself conscious in the moments where you know you're typically unconscious. The brushing your teeth example is a great one. When you're showering, maybe use a different hand to hold the loofah and scrub yourself. Or maybe, put your shampoo on your hair in a different way than you normally do. Like maybe start your makeup on a different side of the face than you normally do. I don't know. I think I always start with this eye and then go here. And I have like a specific program that I run. Obviously, these are very basic examples of like just doing everyday things, but I'll give you a real life example that I had to disrupt. At the beginning of this year, I wrote in my journal that I wanted to do something that surprised myself every single day. And as much as this seemed like a fun, cute challenge, it was really because I understood how reality creation works. And I understood that I needed to challenge every single day my notion of who I am in order to ensure that I can always become someone different when I decide to. I needed to disempower the current version of myself at any given moment in time so that I can constantly remind her, you can always change whenever you want to. Whenever you decide that this is not working out for you, you always have the power to change. So it was really funny. Like we were in Dubai with my family for the New Year's. And, like I said, I had literally just decided that every single day I'm going to do something that surprises me. And so it was literally like 1 a.m. one night. And my brother had a puppy at the time who is now a dog, a grown dog. But at the time it was a puppy. So it needed to be taken out like literally every 2 minutes to go pee and poop. And it was 1 a.m. and we realized nobody had taken him out before we went to sleep. And everybody was groaning and they're like, oh, we're all sitting upstairs. And they're like, oh my God, we have to take him out. So I was just like, I'll do it. And everybody got quiet and just kind of looked around like, did she just say she's going to do it? Like this girl does not get off the couch, And so, at that point in time, I had already done enough change to where my reputation started shifting and people stopped saying things like that about me. We'll get to that part in a second. But the fact that it was 1 a.m., when you're like warm and cuddled on the couch, nobody is ever trying to get up off the couch when you're that comfortable. But there was just this excitement in getting up and doing something that the old me would never dream of doing, because who wants to get off of a comfortable couch, let alone get off a comfortable couch to go downstairs, grab the little puppy, walk him out, and it's kind of like a little chilly outside and you have to take him out until he poops and you don't even know when he's going to poop. Like there's just so much there. And I just went and did it and everybody was shook. But more importantly, I was shook in all of the best ways. And I started to get addicted to this feeling of disrupting the program every single day. And so some days I would do like 5 things a day just to be like, this is something that old me would never do. And now it has just become probably the only constant in my personality at this point is how rapidly I've decided to change. And a quick point on like the whole other people's perceptions piece, people around me started noticing, like my family members, my husband, like they all would make these little comments like, oh, she's different now. She's different now. And I think that that's the beautiful part is once you really double down, the world, not just the people around you, but the world will start reflecting back to you the internal change that you've gone through. In the beginning, people will start trying to pull you back because they want that predictability too. They want that version of you that they feel they're entitled to. But when you really double down and make it past that rough patch and decide that you're going to be who you said you're going to be, everybody and everything is not only going to fall in line, but is going to conspire in your favor. If we take a line from The Alchemist, like literally the universe will literally start conspiring in your favor, and you'll start to really see how aligned everything around you can be when you just decide to take some intentional action towards who you want to be. I'll give you one more personal story around this topic of completely disrupting the program. And this is a very personal one for me that I definitely plan on talking about more. I'm someone who over the past 15 plus years has been kind of, I don't want to say yo-yo dieting, because I don't know that I was really dieting, but just going back and forth when it comes to weight loss, weight gain, back and forth, back and forth. And it was pretty extreme at certain points. And after half of my life of me kind of working on this one thing, I've learned so much about the way that I think, but never more than I learned in the past year that I've gotten into this kind of work where I'm learning about reprogramming your mind. And again, the book that I recommended to you all. Now I'm like, oh my God, I can totally see now how I've recreated the same exact cycle. Even when I lost weight, I would just go back to this other version of me because the program that was in my mind was going to get triggered at some point and run automatically. There's kind of like the set point that I had in my mind that I was not conscious of that would guarantee I went back to a specific weight or a specific body size. And it almost happened to me again. And I knew that I was different for good a couple of months ago, where I realized the trigger that was going to send me down that familiar path. And I made a very intentional decision to completely move the train in a completely different direction. And boy, was it grueling and was it hard, but I did it. And I am reaping the benefits of that decision today because I feel so much better. I look so much better. I'm just a healthier minded and physically healthier version of me because of that decision to not pursue the familiar path. And I'll tell you a little bit more because I know I'm being a little vague. Basically what used to happen with the old version of me was I would get into a great flow, a great routine. I know I've been playing sports my whole life. I know a lot about health and fitness. So I would be in the gym, being super active, super healthy, be focusing a lot more on, eating healthier foods, kind of like 80-20 vibes, more like 70-30, but I would work out to kind of compensate for that little 10% of cheat days, right? So anyway, what would happen is I would start feeling better. I would look in the mirror. I would notice that I'm looking better. My clothes would start fitting better. And then surely enough, I would hop on that scale and that number wouldn't look like what I wanted it to look. I never used to really realize what would happen after that, but it would trigger all these emotions and beliefs and thoughts to just kind of attack me. It was kind of like a virus, literally. It would attack me like a virus. And all these thoughts would start flooding in, and the thoughts would be really crazy. They would be like, see, I told you not to think you look good. You don't look good. See what that number says? You're not doing anything. Everything you're doing is wrong. You might as well just give up. Nothing that you're doing has been working. Why did you think it was working? Why did you let your guard down? Why did you allow yourself to believe that this time would be different? I'm even saying it out loud and getting kind of freaked out because I'm like, dang, those were really the thoughts. And they were even 10 times worse. They would start getting me to question everything I was doing. They would start getting me to question whether I was even capable of losing weight. Your body is just different. You're never going to be able to do this. Are you always going to struggle with something like this? They would be so mean, so discouraging, and I would understandably have so many negative emotions coming out of that swarm of thoughts and just kind of limiting beliefs that I would almost kind of give up after that and get extremely discouraged and then start gaining back the weight. But the craziest part is when I gained back the weight, inevitably from, because I would take that familiar path, instead of being logical and realizing you gained the weight, girl, because your thoughts became really negative and it's really hard to keep positive habits from a negative place. Not because those thoughts were true. I would incorrectly believe that because I gained the weight back, that must mean that those thoughts were true. I wouldn't stop to consciously realize that because I allowed the trigger to welcome in all those negative thoughts, that sent me down a path of negativity that ultimately resulted in bad habits and weight gain. I would not tell myself that story. The story that I would tell myself is, see, all of those thoughts were right. They had a point. You had no right to be happy. You had no right to be proud of yourself. You had no right to think you were doing the right thing because you weren't. See, it always gets us back here. So when I say that I know I'm different for good, it's because I had a moment like that a couple months ago. I was doing these weekly weigh-ins with an online trainer that I had hired. And I knew I was killing the shit because I was being consistent. I was looking better, feeling better. I got on the scale and I did not like that number. And the thoughts came in like that virus that I just described. And I sat in the bed and I'm like, no, I'm killing it. And I just need to keep going. And all these thoughts that keep telling me I have a deadline by the summer or by this specific day, or you need to have, who said that I need a deadline for me? Like, who gave me that deadline? Who said that I need to look at this number and let it completely discount all these other positive feelings that I've been having? So I truly let myself have a night where I just sat with the freaking uncomfortable ass feelings. Like, it was probably one of the most uncomfortable nights in a while. Like, I felt like I was hanging out in like a dumpster. Like, everything around me felt like trash, but I decided that I'm not gonna let this thing take me where it wants to take me. We're gonna sit here. I didn't feel quite strong enough in that moment to turn the ship, but I had made the decision to turn the ship, which means I'm not letting you guys take me down this slippery slope that you're trying to take me down. We're going to sit right here. We could talk. You guys can tell me what you need to tell me, but I'm conscious. I'm not doing that thing anymore where I'm unconscious and you just get to influence me. You can talk. I'm going to listen to you because I'm actually really curious about what you guys have been saying all along, but that doesn't mean I have to listen to you. So I let myself have that night to sit with all those uncomfortable feelings and kind of like observe those thoughts. And truly they were like bewildering. Like, as I was actually for the first time consciously allowing them in and hearing them, I'm like imagine this conveyor belt that I talked about earlier. I'm looking at like thought after thought after thought that is just completely contaminated. And I'm like, we need all of this out of here. Like, we need to close this whole factory down because this is terrible. And now I understand what used to happen, but we're not doing that this time. So what I did decide is to do something completely different. And this kind of takes us to why Albert Einstein has that quote that like the definition of insanity is to do the same thing and expect different results. So this time I'm like, no, I'm not doing that because I know where that gets me. I've been there a million times and I'm not trying to go back. What I need to do is stop weighing myself. And so for literally like 2 months, I haven't gotten on the scale. And baby, it shows. Like, in my body, it shows. In my energy, it shows. In my mental health, it shows. And there will probably be a future version of me that is able to get on the scale. But I understand right now that like that is triggering for me. I'm in a very vulnerable, cocoon. And I'm about to be a butterfly. And I can't just be having these things that trigger me. I can't have things poke at the cocoon while I'm trying to heal and grow and metamorphosize into this butterfly that I know I'm going to be. And I think that's the difference, is that I know it's happening this time. And it's because of the girl that night who sat in that little dumpster of crazy thoughts and decided she wanted something different. I want you to understand that the past version of yourself is literally the last person you should be consulting on who you get to become. And it's because of what I said earlier. The past version of yourself is stuck in predictability. She's stuck in that old program. She's stuck in her fixed mindsets and the habits that have gotten her to become that person, the one that you just decided you don't want to be anymore. She only knows the habits, relationships, opportunities that you just decided are not good enough for you. So she is literally the last person you need to be consulting on how to become your future self. It's funny, I actually just bought a book, and I'll let you guys know how it goes, but it's called Be Your Future Self Now. I'm obsessed with the title because I've always lived by that. I've always lived by, let me just channel that person I'm trying to be. Because once again, It's a GPS. That's my destination. Why would I put my destination on where I just came from? Think about that. Like, again, I speak in metaphors, and that was a bar because I didn't even realize how real that was. If you were leaving your house to go to the gym and you put the destination as your house and you tried to leave your house, wouldn't your GPS go crazy? Because it wouldn't see past where you literally are. You wouldn't be able to go there. And so when you are this version of yourself, trying to become that version of you, but you're only consulting this version of yourself, you have no foresight. And I know you might think, well, yeah, hindsight is helpful though. Like if I think about who I used to be, that's going to help me, with some lessons to become that version of me. Not really, to be honest. Like the lessons that you learned are important, but only if looked at through the lens and the eyes of that future version of you. The only reason you can see those experiences that you went through as lessons is because these eyes are different from the eyes that went through it. If you had these eyes as you were going through it, you wouldn't have had to go through it. That version of you has no say. It doesn't determine who you're becoming. Just because you used to be somebody who dated these kinds of guys doesn't mean that that's who you're going to be for the rest of your life. Just because you used to be socially awkward and didn't like to go out and meet new people doesn't mean that's who you have to be tomorrow. Just because you don't like to run on the treadmill, this is me, doesn't mean that tomorrow you can't be a freaking triathlete who loves to run. Stop telling yourself things about your future self based on who you were yesterday. Stop doing that to yourself. You will have enough people in your life try to do that to you. Stop doing that to yourself. My family starts knowing this about me too. My husband literally the other day, because we're going on a trip, I was telling him how I'm going to I'm going to start packing early because the future version of myself packs 3 days before a trip. The old version of myself packs the morning of a trip, even if it was an international trip and I had 2 bags to pack. I swear, I promise you, I'm not even exaggerating. I did that 3 months ago. And now this version of myself is looking at a fully packed bag in front of her. And we don't leave until 2 days from now. But anyway, I was telling him how I was packing. And he's like, okay, but don't do that thing that you do where you fold all the clothes and, you get them looking nice and then you leave them on the couch. And I don't know about you, but I'm actually okay folding the clothes. It's just putting them away that annoys me. So it was funny because when he said that, I'm like, don't freeze me in time. Okay. Don't freeze me in time. And so he started laughing. He's like, okay, fine. Don't freeze you in time from literally last week when you did that. I'm like, yeah. Don't freeze me in time from last week. Don't freeze me in time from yesterday. If I did something an hour ago and I decide I want to be different, don't try to tell me that I'm that person. Don't. You don't get to tell me who I'm becoming. The old version of you, just like the people in your life, have no say in who you decide to become. That was a lighthearted example just to say that the old version of you gets no say in who you are becoming. Instead, I want you to focus on surprising yourself. Instead of leaning on predictability, instead of leaning on habit, I want you to try to surprise yourself. I want you to really envision who you want to be and start thinking of ways you can surprise yourself every single day towards that goal. You will start to become so proud of yourself. You will start to feel so empowered. You will start to trust yourself. And the best part is that you will become addicted to that feeling of surprising yourself and making yourself proud. That's where I'm at right now. I'm truly addicted to this feeling of I can't even predict what the future me has in store because she's so lit. And every single glass ceiling that tries to contain her, she has shattered through it. I'm in awe of the future version of me where I'm just dang, I really can't put any limits on you because you've already surprised me so many times. And I want that for you, my love, so much because not to be cliche, but this is our chance. This is our life. We've been given the greatest gift in the world, not just to be alive, but personally, to be alive during this time. This is a lit time to be alive. Let's just be so for real. I'm literally looking at a little camera lens and speaking to hundreds and hopefully hundreds of thousands and millions of people at some point. I'm speaking at a camera lens and I'm able to meet you wherever you are in the world, at your house, in your car, in the shower. That's crazy, right? That's kind of wild. We're alive during a time that is just so in itself limitless and enabling and empowering. Why would you allow a stupid thought to determine who you get to be? I almost did that day. I almost allowed this swarm. Yes, they are very scary at times. I'm not downplaying them, But they're still thoughts. Like, I can't even see them. And I was going to allow these things that I can't even really see to scare me into being and bully me into being a past version of myself. I'm just bored of that version of myself. Instead, I decided to take a step out on faith and have courage to try something new so that I could be something new. And that's what I want for you. I want you to try something new every day so that you could be someone new. We're gonna end it on that because that was a bar too. As always, I am not gonna tell you to like or subscribe because I know you hear that more than enough. But what I will say is if you've enjoyed this video, bring a friend with you next time. Maybe even just send this to a friend right now that you think needs to hear it. Let's leave people even more powerful than we found them. I love you so much, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.